Oh, in hot water. How much money for you to poop in a rich guy's bed? 500?
Never, 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 never.
Explain to me this Poopgate situation.
Poopgate is such a weird thing, and this is the thing that I try not to judge the people that are involved in these lawsuits, but it's hard
Let's
not
judge them
to.
here. Judge
It's
them
it's
here. This is the space for judgment.
it's really hard not to. So apparently, so this is what happened in April 2016. Johnny was supposed to go to their penthouses that they were living at together in downtown LA. He was late to a dinner that was for Amber's birthday. Um, so he was very, very, very late, and so she was upset. And apparently,
How late?
like an hour and a half or something. But
Ah.
he also the reason why he was late was because he was at a meeting where he found out that he had been screwed out of, I think, several $100 million by his financial
Oh,
advisors. So it was
God.
a very serious reason to be an hour and a half late to your wife's birthday dinner.
And I'm sure, was
Um,
he not texting her being like, I am
yeah,
running late. Here is why. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's not the
yeah.
80s. You're not like sitting there going, I wonder where they are.
Yeah, exactly. And so then she was pretty upset about it. And apparently, and I guess, they had gotten into an argument. She left after that to go to Coachella, but before she left for Coachella, um
Coachella.
she was with her friends, and there's a little bit of a gap, and we're filling in information. But on the other end of that gap is the housekeeper, who, unfortunately, these are the people that really get caught up in the middle here. The housekeeper was cleaning the penthouse, was going to make the bed or something, or clean the bedroom, found a large deuce in the bed.
So
Or
Johnny wasn't even there. He wasn't even home for this.
he wasn't. He was gone. He was gone. And or as Johnny referred to it on the stand, he has like the craziest vernacular, and I love it. I love the way that he talks. It's so funny. But he referred to it as a grumpy. Um, that there was a grumpy in the bed.
Well, I've never heard anyone say that. That's funny.
I've never heard of that before,
A
but
grumpy.
it's a Johnny thing. So he was out at his other residence, because of course he's Johnny. He owns an island. He owns multiple residences. So he was at the the, I think, the Sweetser house is what he said. And so they were trying to figure out when was a good time to go and get his stuff, because he kind of had already decided by this point that it was going to be over, and he wanted to get some things that were important to him. And they knew that she was going to Coachella, and so they were like, this is a perfect time to go and get it. And then one of his bodyguards said, now's not a good time, and he showed him a photo that the housekeeper had sent to him. And it's you can find it all over the internet. It's awful. It's disgusting.
I'm
It's
just Googling grumpy.
or Poopgate. That's probably how you'll find Amber Heard Poopgate. You'll find the photo.
The poop that ruined their marriage.
um, so when he tried to talk to her about
Ooh.
it a few days later, she tried to deflect, apparently, and said, it wasn't me, it was the dogs. They have multiple dogs, but the dogs are 4-pound teacup Yorkies. So
I mean, unless they'd been storing that one up for a while. Yeah, it
I,
seems
I
unlikely.
I have a doggo here with me. I pick up poop on a daily basis, and I can tell you there's a different size between my 50 or 60-pound
Wow.
dog's poop and the cat's poop that I scoop out of the kitty litter. It looks different.
Ugh.
It looks very
Why
different.
on the bed? Was this
It
like a surprise for him to find? Like, obviously
Yes,
they have
that's
housekeepers there that are constantly making the bed and cleaning up. Like, what was
yeah.
she thinking, that he would just dive back in
I
and
don't
find the
know.
poop?
I don't know, but it was supposed to be either a prank or some kind of
Oh,
retaliation. Yeah, look at those guys. They're too little.
and
They're way too
this is
little. There's a certain
yeah, this is
circumference that stuff comes out of.
they put in a cage as like bad girls. Oh my god, Pistol and Boo. They're like, it wasn't us.
I know.
God
I
damn
know.
it.
Bring
We
them to
can't
the stand.
talk.
We need their testimony. We
We
need them to clear their
do.
names.
Oh no. Did you
Oh,
guys
man.
make a lot of deposition puns, or does that not
It
apply?
has come up. It has come up in especially in the chat. We actually haven't so much on the panel, but we've been having a lot of fun with a lot of these memes. There's Poopgate. Now there's also Muffingate that has come up during the trial. And
Muffingate.
yeah. Well, because it's and this is not so much between the parties, but this is one of Amber Heard's attorneys is she has an interesting style. I don't like it. It's a little bit too aggressive. And she also, the way that she asks questions is kind of loose in such a way that when she's questioning an adverse witness, she doesn't retain enough control just because of the way that she asks these questions. And then she gets very frustrated, and then things kind of fall off the wagon. And then she tries to kind of like Hulk smash a witness into submission with a bunch of questions, but it doesn't work out. But she asked this one expert witness about she tried to pin this expert witness into basically saying that she was revealing confidences about the fact that she was going to be analyzing Amber Heard to analyze her psychology. And she was trying to make it look like she was professionally irresponsible in this by talking about it to her husband, and then the husband telling Amber Heard about how excited his wife was to meet her or whatever. But she gave her this opportunity to explain, no, I have this, whole office with employees. When we have a high profile person coming in, it happens from time to time. We have a policy where we clear everybody out so that we can give them privacy. My husband knows what our policy is for that. He understood that the whole office was cleared. He understood there was a high profile person. I asked him to get muffins, as I always do for these kind of high profile, people that are coming in, and he brought them in. So we had some muffins with it. So it was just this whole thing about like muffin gate, because this attorney
detail of the muffins.
Yes, because it was like this attorney was like so focused on these muffins that she was like being somehow improper with these muffins. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Style. How many different kinds of styles are there? I mean, you mentioned like she had kind of a bad style or an aggressive style.
So, I mean, you can be a bit more laid back, in the way that you talk to people. You can be a bit more like soft and empathetic, and then you can be like a bulldog type, that's just very, very aggressive. You can kind of see that between the two sides in this trial. Johnny Depp's attorneys are much more chill in the way that they've gone forward, so far anyway. Whereas Amber Heard's attorneys so far have been very aggressive. Like when they come into a cross-examination, they're like going in pretty hot.
They seem cunty is the word. Like
Yeah.
I watched a lot of both sides, and I'm like, this side is cunty, and the other side, they're like laughing, joking, more relaxed. And it's like every time I watch the other side, I'm like, I feel like I did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that could be it could be read one way or another, because you've got well, number one, we are in Johnny's case in chief. So all of the witnesses that have been called so far to the stand have been called by Johnny's attorneys. So they're friendly to his side. So, I do want to keep that in my brain as I'm looking at both of these sides. So, they're adverse witnesses to what Amber's attorneys are doing, like they're adverse to her interests. So they're always going to be a little bit more, at the very least, assertive. But even still, like there's a way to do a cross-examination that is not completely alienating and putting somebody off entirely. Like you can do it just by the way that you structure your questions and just not come across bitchy, like you can be assertive without being bitchy. Yeah, it's been a bit of a thing with the two vibes from the two sides. And another part about that is that, they're also trying to make subtle communications about the vibe on each side too. Like, Amber's trying to combat this. I would think she's trying to combat this idea that she is this aggressive and dramatic and exaggerative person, who's high and then low and then high and then low. Whereas on Johnny's side, he's also trying to combat that he's somehow an aggressor, an abuser. And the fact that his team so far has been looking pretty chill, pretty calm and cool and collected is good for him. I would think that she would want that for her as well. But of course, as a client is going to be, evaluating who their attorneys are going to be, you also want certain styles based on what kind of expectations you have for what a lawyer should be. She may say, I want a bulldog. I want somebody who's going to go in there and fight for me because that's what I deserve. At the same time, you can also have jurors who have certain expectations of lawyers, because most people know lawyers based on what they see on TV. And so they may have, Matlock in mind, or they may have Suits in mind, or they may have, all these different like characters that you see, Legally Blonde, like they may have all these different
What?
characters
Like
in
it's
mind.
hard? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it could play one way or another, but for me personally, I don't like the level of aggression and attitudiness that's been coming from Amber's side, particularly their main female attorney. And maybe I'm just judging other women because women judge women, but
But
personally, I
women
don't.
also know women better. Like when I look at this, and someone in the chat mentioned this earlier, that they've learned so much about toxic relationships watching the trial. I'm like, yes, men can physically beat a woman 9 times out of 10, are stronger, can do more physical damage, but like some women do have a talent for like mental and emotional manipulation and can
Oh yeah.
really damage you way more that way.
Yeah, I mean, without doing you getting into too broad of brushstrokes, there's generally speaking, men and women, on average, I would say, conduct violence in different ways. Men might have physical aggression. Women are more socially violent, if that makes sense, through
Socially violent. That's
manipulation.
a t-shirt right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Socially
Because it's
violent.
like it's women are like, I won't necessarily, physically break your body, but I will break your life if I can. If it really comes down to it, women are absolutely capable of that, which is almost more destructive in a lot of ways. Not to say that women can't be physically violent. We have seen that in this case as an example. And not to say that
Yeah.
men also can't ruin the lives of women. They can definitely do that. There's examples of that, like revenge porn and all kinds of terrible things that men
Yeah.
can do too.
And that
So,
feels like
but
a more female way to go about it. Whereas, like, yeah, Amber Heard is clearly hitting him, which seems like a more like male way to go about it. And even like I was listening to a bit of a recording, I think it was of Amber saying like, yeah, I'm hitting you, but like, stop being a bitch about it, or like, suck it up already. And I was like, and then I heard someone say that the two of them have recorded a lot of interactions between each other, and I'm like, they've only
yeah,
been together what, like a year and a half. Like, do you find it weird that they have recorded so much of each other?
I mean, talking to some divorce lawyers, it's actually relatively common for, when things start hitting the fan, for the two sides to start surreptitiously recording one another. I don't know how that works in a state that requires both parties to consent. Um, Virginia, as an example, is a one party consent rule. So the person who's recording is consenting and they're allowed to record it. California, on the other hand, requires both parties to consent to a secret recording. So it's been an interesting twist in this case because they're both California residents, and all of these recordings, or many of these recordings, I should say, have occurred in California. So usually, I would not expect for something like that to come into trial because of evidence rules related to the fact that it's a one or a two party state. But it looks like both sides have just agreed to let all of this stuff in. But it is crazy. It is a crazy amount of recordings that they do have in this case. But from what I know from divorce lawyers, apparently it's more common than you might think, unfortunately.
Wow, that's crazy. But you know what?
Yeah.
As soon as you notice someone is claiming things about you that you didn't do and is like gaslighting you, you're like, okay, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to prove myself one day. Especially when there's like a lot of money involved. Right? They were
Yeah.
married, so
Yeah. Well, and that too, like the thing about Johnny recording these things was that really kind of connected for me listening to his testimony when he said that when he decided to start recording her, because he said that he had so many of these experiences that it was just the two of them, and she would deny and basically gaslight him. And he literally was like, I just needed to know if I was imagining things or if this was real.
wow.
I needed to be able to put this in front of somebody else and ask them, am I imagining this or is this real? And that is true for anyone who's in an abusive relationship, I think, or maybe not everyone, but for so many people, you hear this as a common refrain that the abused also get gaslit by the abusers. Um, and I think for someone in his circumstance, it's especially so because he has such a strange life. Like as soon he described how his life changed after Pirates of the Caribbean 1 came out. how he suddenly became this like superstar. He needed a whole team of security guards now. It was like a whole special mission to take the kids to the park. It was like, going out is like a whole strategic affair, as opposed to just going down to the diner and being a normal human being. So I can imagine that for someone like him, his reality is so different that it's not what a normal person would have. And it's not even what he had ever had before that point. So I could totally see someone being in that situation and questioning everything about the reality, and then being in a relationship with someone who's also gaslighting them, questioning their reality. Like, it's so many reasons to record and just try to get an objective idea on what's going on there.
Yeah, at least you're like, okay, I guess I'll listen to this later, because I feel like everything I say is, I totally know that feeling of like, your reality is not real, because
Hmm.
the other person has to be right all the time.